Welcome everybody to BBC again. The community is celebrating 3 years of using nonviolent communication as part of the community value to help us to communicate more wisely and kindly with each other. And so I've been thinking a lot about it in the past week or so. And there's something quite brilliant about it. Marshall Rosenberg, I think he's one of the most brilliant people that really can help humans to communicate better with each other. And what he does in nonviolent communication is he uses a tool that human beings have been using probably for millennia, which is, let me see if I can, this word is very hard to pronounce, amorphizing animals, which means taking animal characters or creatures and putting human foibles and characteristics and personalities on them. And this has been going on since, the Egyptians had animal heads and bird totems, and the Phoenicians and the Greeks, and even the cave people had animals taking on human qualities. And I have to think that it must be some way for the human family to sort of, in maybe an indirect way, to kind of learn how to understand itself, maybe to get in touch with some characters or traits in us that are much harder to see when we're looking at ourselves directly. But we've been doing this as a human family for a very, very long time, and so Marshall uses this tool quite brilliantly. We've had it in our culture. We've had cartoons, we've had puppetry has been in the human family for also millennia. And we've got, Roadrunner and Bugs Bunny and Miss Piggy, and they have these human qualities of which we can laugh at, that we're astonished by, that maybe cause us a little bit of self-reflection because we can really see ourselves in them. There's something about this tool in the human perspective. And what Marshall does is that he uses two animals in our world, one to symbolize the human heart and mind totally disconnected, totally not at its probably most unwholesome, unhelpful, most miserable. And it uses another animal to sort of symbolize the human heart and mind at its most open. So he uses the jackal for that mind of ours that blames, self-judgment, criticize, the self-centered thought, the one that is anxious, the one that's upset, the one that's just all the unwholesome aspects of our minds are embodied in this jackal puppet. And I went online because he's talked a little bit about the giraffe, which is the more wholesome, virtuous aspect of the human mind, and he says that it's the largest land animal with the biggest heart. And so he thought that that would be a wonderful symbol of wanting to connect and how we try very hard to really understand the causes for happiness, not only for ourselves and others, but then to try to see if we can create those. And so I looked up the jackal, and it's kind of interesting. We have coyotes in America are considered to be the American jackal, and they are noted for being opportunist omnivores and proficient scavengers. They're used in certain sacred texts quite frequently, and they're used basically to illustrate desolation, loneliness, and abandonment. And they are known to live in the ruins of humans, so after cities have been deserted, according to Bibles and other sacred scriptures, the jackals move in and take over and scavenge whatever they can find. And so for Marshall's training and how he uses these animals is that the jackal arises from the past or from the future. And that is, it is the voice of old hurts, conditionings, mental habits, wrong conceptions. Its communication skills are poor at best, and spends a lot of its time blaming and giving the responsibility for its own feelings to others. It's very conniving, though, because it hooks us into guilt, taking on the responsibility of the jackal, of others, or really feeling badly about our own struggles, and that it's notorious for getting us to hook in and to take away all of what it needs to own. There's an inner jackal and an outer jackal. So not only do we hear it when people are upset and they don't know how to communicate their feelings and needs, but also we have the same difficulty. And trying to put this into a Dharma context, the jackal, I see a lot of it in self-centered thought, that me, the center of the universe. So the jackal symbolizes that in nonviolent communication, that is totally self-preoccupied with what it's not getting, what is being separated from, getting what it doesn't want. The part that I'm not quite clear about is that according to Marshall, the jackal's got this little heart at its chest, that when there's a giraffe facing it that has an open heart and is trying to get in touch with that jackal's feelings and needs, that little heart opens up and starts to sparkle. Now, I don't think the self-centered thought is redeemable. And so this is a little bit of a different perspective for me, is that I don't think the self-centered thought is the jackal. I think from that self-centered thought, which is not redeemable, in fact, we spend a lot of our spiritual practice trying to dismantle it and to disempower it. So I'm not quite sure whether the jackal is just a confused version of our own minds, sort of influenced by the self-centered thought and the self-grasping ignorance, but when given some compassion, given some empathy, that jackal can actually work its way into being somewhat giraffe-like. And then on the other side of, so he's got these two puppets that he usually works with, the jackal, and then he's got the giraffe, this one with the beautiful heart that arises from the present only, doesn't carry a lot of baggage and doesn't worry about the future. It is the voice of connection, forgiveness, wisdom, compassion, empathy, the correct conception. And it's got extremely good communication skills, and one of its main communication skills is listening. It's not interested in hooking anybody, and it's very clear, and it knows how to discern what it belongs to as far as feelings and what belongs to other people. So it's very balanced on understanding the responsibility of what's going on with itself. So when I think about my Dharma practice and I try to integrate these two little amorphized parts of my mind, I see that the Lam-rim and the thought training that we have and that we practice. First of all, one of the things that's really helpful to do with the jackal is that you've got to learn, you've got to give it a reality check. You've got to meet it where it is, but you've got to help it to start to question what reality is going on in its mind, which is what the Lam-rim does. Through these open-ended questions to ourselves, we get a reality check to understand, is what I'm thinking about the situation true? Am I looking at the other person's needs? Am I looking at the other person's feelings? Where am I in the situation? And am I just thinking about myself? And you can go through all of the Lam-rim meditations, and a lot of them are about addressing that part of ourselves that thinks like a jackal, that is self-criticizing and blaming and judging and tight and narrow-minded, and puts the pause button and then starts to look and question that. And then as you go through the Lam-rims, there's this point where you can actually start to turn your mind to the mind of more giraffe-looking, is saying, if I were to look at this differently, would I be able to see the other person's suffering? Would I be able to bring some compassion into the situation? And so by getting to the correct conclusion on a Lam-rim meditation, you've got sort of the giraffe ears on, either for yourself or for others. And so try to use the jackal and the giraffe, because what happens with me, with my self-centered thought, is that I can't separate myself from the self-centered thought. And one of the main ways to really dismantle it is to see it as I am not my self-centered thought. So when I put the self-centered thought with a jackal face on it or something like that, I can actually disconnect myself from it by amorphizing my afflictions and also giving them, with the giraffe ears, kind of amorphizing my good qualities. First of all, I'm not reifying them, because these creatures are somewhat related to me, but not, and they're sort of doing their own thing. And that it also helps me to not own the self-centered thought and to not get caught in its suffering mind that I take as my own mind, take it as my own self. And so I have found in the past few days using that in certain situations is that I've been able to really put down a lot of my wrong thinking by embodying it in this little creature who's making up all sorts of crazy stories that aren't true, and then working my way into trying to embody more of the qualities of a giraffe, which is to have this very big heart with a lot of wisdom and compassion, focusing on the well-being of others as well as my own well-being. And I'm having fun with it. I'm not getting so caught up in my self-centered thought. And I think that these tools are brilliant. I think the way that Marshall integrates this way that we use animals to personify the human condition is a very, very skillful way for us to be able to work and transform our minds. And it also keeps things kind of light, and see how foolish we are when we get into our jackal minds, and to see how gracious and how noble we are if we can move into more of the giraffe way of thinking.